Hello. The purpose of this video is to give you some further guidance and advice on towards the final presentation on your international collaboration with both Canadian and perhaps Ghanaian students as well. This advice sits alongside that which is already in the formal guidance notes on Blackboard for this group presentation. I can't and I don't want to be overly prescriptive on the format and content of your presentation. All of the groups are undertaking different projects and have progressed in different ways and to different extents, so your presentation will depend to a great degree on those issues. The presentation should last for 30 minutes across your whole group, and then there will be time for up to 15 minutes of questions. Overall, you have been undertaking an international research project, and your presentation fundamentally is about the learning that you have gained from undertaking that project. There are two components, I think, of that learning, each of which should be included in your presentation. The first component is about the comparison of findings on your topic area from the UK, Canada, and potentially Ghana. The second component of your learning is about a reflection on the process of undertaking an international research project. I'll speak about what you might include and the questions you might address in each of those components in turn. In terms of the comparison of findings, you can be speaking about what the underlying problem is that the projects are trying to address and how that relates to the particular context of the UK, Canada and or Ghana. Why is the organisation and the particular type of organisation trying to address this problem? What were they trying to achieve? What were their aims? Who exactly were the intended beneficiaries of the project or programme? How were they recruited to the activities that the project ran, and how were they selected? How exactly did the project run? What was its overall approach to try and achieve those outcomes? What sports did it use? How did it operate? Did it involve other organisations as well, for example? What evidence is there of any impact of the project? And what challenges might there be in the project having a positive impact? I'm not expecting you necessarily to answer all of these questions, but they might give you some indications of the types of aspects that you want to include in your presentation. You should also link this in with literature on your chosen topic area. So, for example, if your group is considering disability sport, then it would be literature on disability and sport. Likewise, with those groups focusing on youth leadership or crime or mental or physical health, for example. And there are various ways that you could structure the section on your comparison of findings. You could include something of a review of some literature initially to give you a focus for what you're then going to cover. You could then cover each country, UK, Canada, and maybe Ghana in turn, and then finally offer some form of comparison of findings. An alternative way of structuring your presentation might be to identify particular themes in your findings, and within each of these themes, covering them in turn, within each of these themes, comparing the literature and what you have found from each country. The second component of your presentation, as I said before, is a reflection on the process of undertaking the project. Some of the questions that you might consider here again would be giving some kind of description of how you've undertaken the research, both in the UK and in terms of working with your international colleagues. Did the information you gathered allow you to undertake an appropriate and an effective comparison? Why or why wasn't this the case? Why or why not was this the case? What might be the limitations to your comparison? How might you, and knowing this, how might you undertake the research differently in the future? You might consider how effective your collaboration with overseas students was. Was the initial conceptualization and initial discussions about how to undertake the research valuable? How was your ongoing communication, and what worked well and what forms of communication didn't work so well? Did you discuss the findings collectively, and was that valuable? You can consider what helped or hindered the collaboration in general. And that might be kind of individual factors affecting you on both sides, or perhaps some of the kind of constraints or aspects of the context that affected the way that you undertook the project. And given reasoned arguments, you can be entirely justified, or could be justified, in criticising the way the project was set up for you in the first place. But overall, what I would hope you would suggest is what you've learned from the process and how it might be useful and or improved if you were to do it again. Again, it would be valuable to include literature here, perhaps on international collaboration in sport, and also perhaps some indications from research methods that you may have gained, for example, from your dissertation. I'll say some final words on the structure of your presentation. The balance between the two components depends on your project. Some may have a lot of information on which to base their comparison of findings and want to focus more on that. Others might have less to compare, but want to speak more about the reflection and the process of undertaking a research project. Because different groups have progressed and in different ways, the balance of these two components might differ for different groups, but all groups should consider some of both components. You can decide the order in which you want to cover those components and think about which component you want to logically include first. I would also recommend that you think as your group at your earliest convenience about how you divide up and the different aspects of the structure of your presentation so that everybody contributes a roughly equal contribution to actually presenting on the day. As the guidance notes suggest, I do not necessarily expect you to stand up and speak for the 30 minutes of your presentation. You can include some of the video clips that either you, your overseas colleagues have collected, the videos of yourselves or your overseas colleagues as well, and or any other kind of media that you've collected, voice recordings, information from websites, any of those kind of aspects. You may have to edit some of the clips, and if you're unsure how to do so, then we can give you advice on that in a workshop. One important point though about any of the media that you include in your presentation is that they should not be included just for their own sake. They should be used as a prompt or a point, or to indicate points that you then want to speak about, analyse and consider the value of. I hope this advice has been useful to you. If you do have any queries, make sure that you do get in touch with me and also have a further look at the guidance notes. Thanks.